take roll, please.
Okay. Ted Carlson,
Yeah.
Terry Kelly,
Here.
Kathleen King,
Here.
David Nesbitt, Becky Wendt is excused. Also present is Lisa Toussaint, Administrative Hearing Officer, and Lisa Slisner, Deputy Municipal Clerk, and we have a quorum.
Okay, very good. Let's take a look at the agenda. Does anyone have anything they wish to add or change to the agenda? Okay, so hearing none, I'll take the agenda as approved. Let's take a minutes from the previous meeting. We have no minutes from the previous meeting, Lisa, is that?
No.
Okay, that's all right. That was a long meeting.
We're almost
Yeah,
there.
that was a double dip meeting, double header. All right, let's take a look then at the consent agenda. Let's take a look at 4A, gift disclosures.
There's about 3 of them there that are legitimate, the rest are, they should be returned.
Yeah, so which ones, let's take a look. Lisa Tran. That's just a letter, right? Is that the center of the?
No, that's $70 gift card. That's a letter, you're right.
Yeah, right. So send her the letter.
Letter to
The-
return.
Yes, and
Okay.
then the next one, Veter, that one's okay, right? That's from the whole
Yeah,
class.
from the whole class.
The next one from PTSA, that's okay, right?
That's a retirement.
Next one, used game console,
From the
entire class, so that's
Entire
okay.
class.
And then $100 cash in an envelope.
That should be a letter.
This is, you know, this. Very appreciative. We've got another poster child one when we have to like make our case, right? It's like look for diamond jewelry and plane tickets. Oh, and cash stuffed in an envelope.
Yeah, that would be a letter.
Yeah, that better be. That should be a letter too, right? Okay.
Next one will be a letter.
Holy cow! Another $100 cash.
Yeah, that's a letter. And Jennifer Hempill, that's from the PTA.
Yeah, that's okay.
And then Heather, that's a letter. Rebecca Nelson, a letter. And that's it. I'm-
And interesting how all of these that we're returning are on old disclosure forms, so evidently the education hasn't gone out at that school, those schools.
No, I will say that it's interesting for some of these, at least the disclosure was filed right away. If it's true, right? I mean, for a lot of these,
Yeah.
they claim the disclosure was basically filed on the same day they received, within a couple days of having received the gift, which is. But you are right, yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at gifts from elected officials. And does Embley look okay to folks? Seems reasonable. All right, and then why don't we move then to present economic interest disclosures?
Okay, I'll tell you, the first batch before the first goldenrod are just all of the exceptions that Dee pulled last time. So, since she's not here, and actually these will come up later when we discuss the meetings that are coming up for these groups, we can skip over this first little section.
Okay, that whole section? with the
Uh-huh.
goldenrod? Okay.
And then it'll start with Churchill for the new disclosures.
Very good. Okay. Dee, could we send, I'm sorry, Lisa, could we send Eric Croft the letter that outlines proper disclosure
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that?
Oh, I meant to queue up the last assembly meeting. You would have been very proud, Terry. Your new members to the assembly must have been listening very carefully to your disclosure advice. And in particular, Eric Croft brought up a conflict that he wanted to declare. And he said, I need to declare this. And the board said, oh, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, no, the Board of Ethics said, I need to declare this, and you all need to make a decision. And so they went, oh, bippity bob. And then they go, oh, by the way, yeah, you shouldn't participate. And he was asked not to participate in the matter. So he pushed it home. He said, no, I've been told that I need to declare this by the Board of Ethics. And so you're happy to know they were listening that day.
That was an effective meeting after all.
Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as I started talking about public trust, Dee was elbowing, come on, let's move on. Let's get to the process. And I guess a similar letter maybe to Kroon, Bradley Kroon. Anyone else say anything from this section that causes them distress? All right. I think that's the consent agenda, right? Lisa?
Well, there's a few unusual things added, and there might just be placeholders for future conversations. Because, for instance, Ennis and Toussaint, they were supposed to come back with some information about municipal employees on boards and commissions, and Dee may not have discussed that with you, being that she's not here, then that's a skipper. And then,
Excuse me a second, I think, did you guys talk about this at the last meeting? I remember the last meeting, we had a meeting, I think it was in April, and then we had a meeting like a week later
Mhm.
that I wasn't able to
Right.
attend. And I think Dee gave me a little bit of a debrief there, but I think you guys probably talked a little bit about this, didn't you?
well,
Or not so
No,
much?
municipal employees on
Yeah.
boards?
Yeah.
No, Dee said
She
that's,
did?
Dee said that's a straight up legal question and they're still figuring it out and it does not appear,
Okay.
at least the sense she gave us was that there wasn't anything that clearly forbids it. But she described it as research in progress.
and so Dee pulled a few municipal employees that were on boards. She pulled a few of those last week to set aside until,
Okay.
could get some
So
advice on that.
basically, next meeting we'll talk about that.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then I just put as a placeholder also the educational letter that I know that, Terry, that you're going to be working on. So I'm just going to keep it as a placeholder. You're going to do an educational letter that we would send to the member and the chair for somebody who might have frequent potential for conflict.
Okay.
And then there was also the Ennis Kelly training PowerPoint / or video. And so another placeholder. Also, you asked me to find out when the upcoming commission meetings were for
Oh,
the
good.
hand commission
Mhm.
and for Health and Human Services. So actually June 1st for the hand commission and June 8th for the Health and Human Services. That might have been timely had Dee been here this meeting, but since she's not, I'll look up the next set of meetings for after the next, our next regular meeting, if that'll work.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah, since Dee's, what's June 1st? Is that next Tuesday? Is that?
Right, is this the last week of, we're already in the last,
Yes.
yeah, so it's next Tuesday, yeah.
Next Tuesday, okay, yeah. That's,
So,
yeah, that's a little bit, I think that's a little bit too quick.
too quick. Okay, I'll look
But
up.
if you could find out, yeah, I mean, if we could start, yeah, figuring out who has, for these two, when's their next meeting, but then generally, if we could start thinking about, if I could get a list of what boards and commissions meet in July,
Okay,
because, Lisa, the one thing we did talk about last time was, starting to visit these boards and commissions.
Mhm.
And so doing some ethics training, and I can say, the one thing that I actually did manage to do between the last meeting and this meeting was do some research on what's going on with municipal ethics
I
programs
see.
nationwide.
Oh, really?
And we're actually pretty good. We're actually, the trend has been to do a lot of the stuff that we've been doing in terms of advisory opinion type programs, notice of violation type programs. But the main area where we're behind what a lot of other cities are doing is having a more aggressive training program. But the idea is that, so we're really good sort of like, insofar as we have a board that's a volunteer board, that it has this advisory role and this disciplinary role, and that's great. But the one thing that we should be doing more is training. And so I think we need to start
okay,
visiting these boards and commissions. And by July, Dee and I will rub heads together, and by July we'll have some sort of PowerPoint
Okay.
together. And so we'll
I'll
have
keep
something
it.
that, the idea would be we could send them something ahead of time that they could go through, like a narrated PowerPoint, which is like a slideshow they just kind of go through, and then we kind of show up with some cases, and maybe we solicit some cases from them. Would have been some like real tough ones to crack over the last, or really raised some ethical issues in your mind about that, whether conflict of interest or what have you. And then we kind of go through, at least one or two of us go and work through it. Okay, so if we could find out who's meeting in July, and maybe August too, and
Okay.
then we can start
okay.
trying to round up volunteers for that. Yeah, we'll make that a target to do that in July.
The only other thing under that is the compliance reports, which I just put them in there and update them for your FYI
Okay.
each meeting. So But there is the subject of notices of intent for public solicitation, which is part of the consent agenda, and there's a couple in there that should be no big deal.
Okay, let's take a look, well, let's take a look at that then. Let's take a look at,
Yellow.
section 5, that'd be the last, yellow is the last section before. Yeah, they look like not a problem.
Who is Todd Hess?
He works at the admin building. He is in charge of HR. He's also the ethics officer for ASD.
Okay, so aside from, unless anyone has any problems with those, let's get a motion then to approve the consent agenda. With the exception of section 4, A4, because we don't really have anything. Is that right, Lisa? We're not-
Mhm.
Yeah, A4 is mostly just notes and stuff that's not done yet. So the consent agenda, 1, 2, 3, and 5.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. So let's take a look at section 6A. Oh, right, this
Yeah, these,
one. Oh,
yeah.
yes.
I just listened to the tapes and transcribed them pretty close to verbatim. And then Dee was gonna take this information and use it to draft an opinion.
Interesting, okay. All right, so is that something we're going to deal with the next meeting then?
I think so.
Okay, let's take a look at, let's see, this is, oh, that's, let's take a look at B, 6B. English.
Isn't this that same issue, Terry, where we're dealing with English's involvement on potential boards?
Yeah, I thought this one was finished.
No,
We did
it's,
one English, right?
we did one English. This one's on hold because of the whole question mark about should municipal employees serve on these boards.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, then let's move on to C then. Lance Wilbur, that's mine, and Lisa, maybe you can help me out. So I'm almost finished this one. We spent almost part of the morning working on it. The main thing do you remember this one? So I'm having problems with the facts. He's an executive. So the problem is I don't remember most of these facts. He's an executive. I don't know where. He approved this thing called a PACE. I don't know what that is. I know it's related to rezoning. It was his approval has something, the material stuff that I remember, or sort of the principal stuff I remember is that whatever he approves, it's very technical and there's not a lot of discretion on his part. And if he rejects it, it just gets kicked back saying, this is what you need for the form to be filled out properly. And that we ruled at the end of the day that, yes, that did count as an official action, but his official action was so, how shall we put it, non-discretionary, that there was no significant stake. As remember, his wife was representing the people within the rezoning, and so her interests were not significantly at play in his particular participation in the act of the rezoning.
Right.
But all of those so I got that discussion. That discussion's done, going through. It's it is an official act, but it's not substantial because what he's involved with doesn't. I can't remember the language, like significantly deals with her. Her interests are not significantly affected by what he's doing.
Right.
But I guess I got to rub heads. I guess would be then. And
Didn't
sort
we
of-
have a lot of discussion about this one, Terry, about which term we were interpreting?
Yes.
I think I remember the discussion and I don't
That
remember
was-
the details of it.
Yeah, that was the official action one, right? Because there was a couple ways of
Yes.
cutting it up,
What's
right?
an
Like,
official- how
is
do
he
you
really
read-
not? Is it not?
Right.
Is he really not involved? Is the official action rezoning, and he's not really involved in that?
Right.
Or is the official action rezoning, and yes, this is a part of that? Or is the official action him approving the PACE form, right? And we agreed. I thought that one way or another it was an official action. You can't have a city official approving something and not call that an official action somehow. But then the question was, okay, his wife represents this petitioner seeking a rezoning. He's approving. Again, he's like the head of what, like billing or something. I mean, like the form that he's filling.
But-
In the process.
Yeah, and it's with his particular part, it's a very, very, it's technical and non-discretionary. In no way was the form he approves was substantive to the question of whether the rezoning should go through or
Right, they
not.
needed his check.
That's
I
right.
think what we concluded was that if we were to rewind this one, in a perfect world, he would have given this to his deputy to do, because it is a necessary check along the way, but it is not a
David.
significantly discretionary.
Are we on the record?
That's right. I mean, I
Yes,
think
we
that's
are.
what said. I think that what we sort of said is, this is, is not up, this is not strictly speaking a violation of the code, but boy, it would be better in the
Yeah.
future to handle this with your deputy running it. Okay, so I'll talk to
Yes.
that. I didn't know.
That to me is one more, I go back to the tapes from Lisa, because I can't remember all the
That's what I should have
details.
done, yeah.
Do you have your thumb drive? Do you want
We helped so much.
Do you want a recording before you leave today?
I do have my, I always have my.
I'm sorry.
I'll put the recording from that meeting.
Well, thank you, yeah, because he was
Oh,
there
there.
too, and he explained sort
Okay.
of what was going on. Okay, so at any rate,
Okay. Do we want to take an at ease and let for a moment, or do we want to keep going?
oh, we might as well keep going. Yeah,
Okay.
David's not really.
I don't really matter.
When he's not on
Yeah,
vacation and actually comes.
We've already written them out of the formula a little bit anyway, so.
He then comes tardy, and then.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be back, kind of.
Yeah, right. It's nice of you. It's at least nice for you to say that.
Yeah, I do that for your benefit.
I loved Michelle's post on Facebook. Was
Oh.
that Michelle who said, I just got a massage, and it was somewhere between a
What
in
did she
Hong
say?
Kong or Thailand, wherever you guys
Yeah.
are. I just got a massage in Hong Kong, and it was somewhere between a chiropractic adjustment and domestic violence.
Did she say that? That's funny.
Awesome.
My wife has conversations that I don't know exist because I'm not on Facebook. And, yeah. No. Okay. You're in charge.
No.
You're the chief today. Okay. So where are we?
No, here, I'll hand this over to you.
You're handling it to me? I don't know. What? Okay.
No, okay. I'll give it to you.
No, you.
Silence!
I don't. You're welcome to give it to me, but I'm just asking. Like, what are we
Where
up to?
are we?
What are we doing?
Good news is, we've just done all the grunt work. So gift disclosures and all that stuff
Oh. Okay.
is done. We're in the middle of discussing, you might remember this one.
Probably
This
not.
was
My brain has been completely like vacated of all interest in
You're so
things.
lucky. That's nice.
Long time. Yeah.
This was the guy, he approved this form for a rezoning issue, then found out or realized later that his wife was representing the petitioner.
Oh.
And he came to a meeting and discussed it. I'm working on, the bottom line is, I'm working on the opinion. It's coming along.
Okay.
But I need to backfill the facts because a lot of it was based on sort of like the details of the specific form that he was reviewing and da-da-da-da-da. And I remember the in-principle reasons we reached the decision that we reached, in which we basically told him, technically this isn't a violation of the code, but don't do it this way
Mhm.
in the future. In the future, if your wife's...
He indicated in here that in the future.
That's right, and that's what he said he would do. He said in the future it'll be handled by the department deputy instead of you
Yeah.
directly. And we said that's the way to go.
Mhm.
Technically, we don't think there was a violation of the code here, but
But
it really
don't-
is.
but
better
stay
to do
away
it that
from
way.
better
You
practice.
just don't want to be signing
Yeah.
off on stuff that your wife's
Right.
spouse is involved in.
Sure.
Okay,
Oh,
so-
that does sound familiar, actually.
Yeah, so that one's in progress. So
Okay, so you're drafting something on that?
yeah, I'm drafting on something like that.
Okay.
Oh, so let's move on to 6D. This was the
Lieutenant.
this was the dog. Oh, you might have totally missed this one. You
Missed
might
this
not have
one.
been here. This guy came in,
Yeah.
and
Dollars, yeah.
the question here. Oh, and who got tasked with this one?
D.
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 Oh, okay.
Where's D?
She is not here today.
At all?
No, she's
No.
here, but she's not
No,
at
no,
our meeting.
yeah.
This one was kind of interesting. So the way
Mm-hmm.
the city gets dogs for the police,
Mm-hmm.
there's a nonprofit citizen group that basically raises funds for
Mhm.
them. And then what they do is they send handlers, police, whoever are going to get these dogs, sending them these like kennels in the lower 48
Mm-hmm.
where these dogs are bred and trained.
Mhm.
And basically, I still feel like at a surface level, there's a certain way in which, at least if this were in a newspaper story, it would kind of sound dodgy. Because let me just put it in a glib kind of way. They send these guys down and they hand them a credit card and say, "Okay, go."
Whom a credit card?
The group, the voluntary fundraising group, hands police officers a credit card saying, "Go and it gets better. Go and use this to get your hotel and book your flight." Da, 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 da.
Oh, so
And
the
then
officer goes down with
Right.
the training of the dog
Yeah.
so that they bond? Or whatever.
Well, the idea is like the officer is going to. It's basically the officer is going to pick which dog, if any. of the
Yeah,
dogs
they
go
don't
right.
have the dog yet. They're going to go pick it out.
Yeah, that's right.
From
So they hand them the credit card. This is our group's credit card. Go,
Really?
go down there, and well, it gets better. At least for me, at the set. Oh, and if you find the dog that you like, here's a
Blank.
check.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because this one kennel will not accept credit cards.
So here's a blank.
So the
check.
blank check?
Here's a blank check, and when you find the
They
dog
don't
you
accept
like-
credit cards, but they will personal checks. Isn't it the other way around? Like, what's the opposite about that?
So when you find the dog you like, just fill out the blank check.
Really? On behalf of this nonprofit?
Yeah.
Fill
Wow.
out the blank check, and you know.
That's impressive. Does that include collars and
Well, who knows? I mean, in some sense, that's the problem. It's like, who knows, right? I mean, like, I felt bad. I'm like, look,
Including next to
well, that's what I said. Like,
$2 from you and an
I
extra
said,
few bucks from you.
Right.
that's what I was like, I said, I'm no way making a judgment or imputing the character, but what's to say you just don't write a check? You and the kennel owner just don't write the check for
Wow.
an extra couple grand. It's a lot of money at stake. It's like $18,000 to $25,000.
Oh, wow.
So,
They
Oh.
segment dogs for
But-
dollars for canines.
Yeah,
that's
Yeah, they're
right.
catching me up to speed on this
You
canine
missed
caper.
it, that's right.
I missed it entirely. I haven't heard this
You
at all.
kinda missed a big meeting last
Huh,
time.
But
yeah.
there's no reason,
So, yeah.
I feel that there's no reason that he can't get on the phone call them here and have them send a certified check down.
Yeah, why don't they arrange for it ahead of time?
And I still don't understand why. I mean, like, I kept asking him, and I really wasn't getting
Well-
anywhere. It's like, why can't the
Oh, did you
kennel-
bring in, who did you bring in?
Oh, one of
This
the-
guy,
yeah.
Jason Schmidt.
Oh, Lieutenant.
The
Oh.
reason they can't is because dogs are different prices.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and they haven't picked out the dog yet, so they may pick out a dog for $2,000, or they may pick out a dog for $10,000.
Yeah, but can't they just pick it? Call the
No,
whatever.
you gotta go
or-
down and visit the dog. There's gotta be like a bonding thing. I mean.
No. What I mean is, but once the APD officer picks out a dog
Yeah,
and then says, "Okay, I want this one," can't then the kennel call the
Oh, right.
right and arrange for payment directly?
to their bank or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
There's any number of ways this could be
Well,
handled.
and then
Right,
the other thing I
right,
couldn't
yeah.
make any progress for is like, well, and also can't someone get a list ahead of time of what the prices of all the available dogs would be? So at least it kind of checks out. It's like,
Yeah.
we knew going down that there was a dog for 22, 25, 27.5, and now you're coming back saying, oh, you know, Balto, the 27.5 dog, that is the dog I want. Oh, okay, well that price at least checks out because that
Right.
was the price that was being initially
So was
offered.
this APD officer? Oh, he's wanting an advisory opinion. I see. Oh, interesting.
Yes, because I guess something happened
Oh.
where someone said maybe they were reviewing it. Maybe the chief wanted all this kind of stuff reviewed, and someone was like, "Whoa."
Didn't they call Dee? And, yeah, and you, chief, wanted to make sure it was legit.
So Dee's drafting something on this. What was the consensus among the group?
The consensus was that there's
Was
no
there one?
violation.
I was super happy I wasn't writing it. That was my personal consensus, was because of all these things that you're talking about. There were all these weird facts.
Weird,
and it was one
yeah.
of those where I knew that I'd have to go back and listen to the facts. And it was kind of confusing. There were so many facts. I mean, we spent a lot of time on this. We got
Mhm.
very delayed, I think, with the rest of our agenda
We did.
because we spent so much time on dollars per case.
It's just, it's one of those things where it's
It
like,
was long.
I didn't see any specific violation of the code, but it's one of those things that if I just gave you that glib, if you put that glib version in the newspaper,
Wow.
right, people would be like,
What?
Like, that's just like a scandal waiting to happen, right? You know, it's like, then we hand them the blank check, and then take the credit card, take our credit card, and here's a blank check.
Wow. So Dee's drafting that. That'll take some editing. Then is that the concept? Once the draft has been written, it'll take a little fidgeting. I'd like to read it.
It
I
just
like.
took a long time to get the facts out.
Mhm.
And we had lots of, just got a lot of questions, and just trying to understand the
Did he
facts.
testify well? I mean, did he? Was he?
He was, I thought he was, I mean, you guys jump in, I thought he was quite organized and he was
Mhm.
more than willing
Yeah, to
to
do.
fill in
Mhm.
answer any questions that people had. He was very,
Okay, so he's very
Okay.
cooperative.
Oh,
in
yeah,
it.
he's
Yeah.
very
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Extremely
he's not,
cooperative.
he's not the one that we would have a problem with.
No, understood.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know.
No, he's the guy that they assigned this project to, and said, "Here, you go figure this out." Right.
Absolutely. No, he was
Okay.
great. Yeah, he was fine, but
Very
it was
nice.
just sort of like,
So are we currently waiting on Dee then to come back with something?
Mm-hmm.
And since she's not here today, then we'll push this off till next meeting. Is that kind of where we're at?
I think that's where we're at.
Okay.
And with that said,
Now we're
let's
on
move on to 6E.
Yeah, this is
Sorry.
where,
Sorry.
this is the water guy.
I was thinking about our water guy the other
Remember
day.
the water guy?
You wanna-
David knows nothing about the water guy or the dog guy or the.
Where's the water guy?
Oh, you weren't here for
I
the water
leave
guy?
for 3 weeks, and everything happens.
That was one of our, that was one of
I know.
our single most colorful meetings,
It was
right? I
great.
mean,
Yeah.
that's,
This one was pretty interesting.
This
And
one.
this is sort of a twist on one that we've written before. It's a twist, definitely a twist on it. Remember Joanne Inglis, who came in and she worked for the ER department, but she'd previously worked for land use
Yes,
planning.
yes.
And
Mhm.
she wanted to know whether or not she might be able to serve as a
Mhm.
private consultant on land use stuff, even though
Mhm.
she was currently working here. This to me felt like a little bit of a twist. This is an interesting guy
Mhm.
who he runs the lab. I mean, I actually thank you, Lisa, so much for making those work tapes available, because I could not do this without that. But he runs a lab. What did I say? It's been a while. He's the water quality section superintendent for AWU.
Mm.
And what he really does is that, I think Terry kind of described this, and I sort of managed to work this way into the opinion for you, Terry.
Thank you.
Because I thought it was a good description where you talked about his stuff is really downstream. What he does is that he provides sampling and, you know, all kinds of water quality sampling for both wastewater and then also for drinking water.
Mm.
And what he wants to do is he wants to have his own private water bottling and
Really?
his water bottling business. He wants to bottle water. He wants to take glacial Clutha water.
Mm.
And there's apparently 8 or 9 other competitors who do this sort of thing.
Mhm.
Except their treatment, it's a bottling and treatment process. Their methodology involves treating water that has already been at least somewhat treated. He wants
Mhm.
to take raw water and subject it to what he described as sort of this physical process. to kind of separate
Non-chemical,
non-chemical
100%
treatment process.
Like an osmosis type of a.
Exactly. I
Yeah,
mean, it was
that's
kind of
right.
interesting talking with him about it.
Mhm.
And so that was really the question is, can he do this or not without a conflict? And I think the conclusion that we reach, I think this is the right conclusion, is that his duties in his current position are very separate and distinct from anything that happens upstream, as Terry described
Mhm.
it, which is really the raw water source. And
Did he come in and
He
speak?
did
He
come
came
in.
in, yeah,
he
and,
was really
yeah,
good
he
too.
gave us
Yeah,
a
it was
pretty
good.
pretty detailed description of what he would do.
So we're saying A-OK on the bottling.
Yeah, we
project.
did, and there were some components, and I think Terry
Mhm.
asked a number of different questions about a component of this project or what he would need to do.
Mhm.
Apparently, everybody, if they want to go in and they want to tap into raw Clutha water or
Mm.
treated water, they have to have an access point.
Mhm.
His access point would be in a slightly different location. It would be, you know, further upstream because it wouldn't be, you know, there wouldn't be any treatment whatsoever subjected to his water. But you have to build on an access point. And the Muni, presumably, they would put this out for bid. Folks
Mm.
would bid on it. He's not going to be involved in that in any way,
Oh,
shape,
okay.
or form. And apparently, it's one of those. I mean, we talked with his supervisor at the time, who
Mm.
said that he thinks the guy's really gone kind of above and beyond,
Oh.
you know, what's normally done. But apparently, with these access points, so long as certain criteria are met, just certain technical criteria met, they have to actually put something out for bid. So it's not like they're giving him any favor that would not otherwise be given to someone who wanted to do this.
And
So
is that this?
That's not a
Okay.
plan, yeah. And I think, it's been a while since I wrote it. I think what I really focused on was the contemporaneous service and employment section, and whether or not his, you know, the words of that provision, it's AMC 1.15.025C, and whether or not, you know, his contemporary service would adversely affect his availability, productivity, and independence of judgment in performing his duties.
So is this up for approval right now? To send out?
Yeah, I think
Is that where we're at? Would you mind if we just take 2 minutes and I can read
I
it?
want to take a few
Yeah.
minutes, I want to take a few minutes and read this.
One thing I'll flag for you guys when you're ready for it. In the last paragraph, I guess before the conclusion,
Mhm.
there's an analysis in here of course, the confidential information piece, which, you know, we concluded was not a problem at all right now. I threw in a little bit more information to kind of put him on notice that if something changes about his current position, the whole confidential
Mhm.
information analysis could change. And I put that in there because I think that was something that Becky raised, and I think that was a good point. However, the more that I think about it, the more I realize it's not just the confidential information analysis that would change, his duties change, the whole thing may change.
That's right.
You know, so I don't know how you guys feel about that. You know, if, you know, we do an analysis based on the facts that are provided as they currently exist, his current job, his current duties. So I don't know if you wanted me to put more of a broader kind of caution in there that all bets are potentially off.
Right, maybe a suggestion that he do something, like seek
Yes.
another opinion, or
Back.
come back,
Come back.
or some kind of take affirmative action as opposed to, this says here, in the event, blah, blah, blah. You would need to abide by the restrictions. That almost sounds like he can continue doing what he's
Yeah.
doing so long as he abides by certain restrictions. We might want to say, this will take some kind of reanalysis or review
Yeah.
or something.
I
don't
wonder,
know.
David, if it's even worth putting in this section that basically says that if the facts of your job change, the confidential information piece changes. Maybe I shouldn't even put that in there. Maybe we should just be more affirmative and say, if the facts of your, you know, if your position changes and the facts totally change, please come back.
Period.
And the reason that
Yeah.
this
That
one
wouldn't-
felt weird,
Mhm.
a little bit for everybody, because we kept thinking, well, he's dealing with municipal water.
Right.
And he's a municipal wastewater.
Right.
And he's an AWU guy, and so I think while we went through the analysis and it seemed fine, this is one where you could see where just the first impression that I think people have is that a guy working in water who wants to do a private water bottling business,
Mhm.
you gotta be really precise about that analysis. So maybe we're better off just cutting
Just-
off
Yeah,
all
just
that
cutting
stuff
it.
and
Because
put
there's
in
any
it.
number of fact changes that could impact the
Yes.
analysis
Come
in the
back.
future, yeah, just
Mhm.
come back.
Well, what I have a problem with is, he has a lot of information in his job that the general public will have, that want to get into the bottling system.
I don't know, I mean, I think he has expertise that the general public doesn't have, but I think the information that he obtains, and we drilled him pretty hard
Yeah.
about this. Because he's in the lab, and he basically is required to oversee the process of sampling both drinking water and then the various wastewater,
Right.
discharge
Right.
points, all of that is publicly available information. Granted, his expertise, Ted,
Mhm.
puts him at a significant advantage over, say,
Yeah.
me, or any of us. But, I mean, that's because of his expertise, but I don't think that there's any information he's gained in the job, which is, you know, he just
gains information about the drinking water and the wastewater streams, and he
Yeah,
reports it.
but he's got to, the water has to be treated, you know, before he can sell it.
Right, and he's
And
been physically
he
treated.
knows what has to be done
Yeah.
through his testing with city water.
Well, it sounds like
You just can't take water out of the
His-
raw water and put it in the bottle and sell it.
it sounds
It
like
has to
he's
be treated a little bit.
he's learned something through education and through experience
Yeah.
that
Is he gonna-
that
is he gonna
allows
take-
him.
Is he gonna take them samples out to a private lab and have it done? Or is,
I think he's taking raw water
Yeah.
and he is physically, doing his physical treatment process. And he contends that that will result in an incredibly wonderful product, which I find sort of interesting, better than the product. that
I was
we-
just yeah.
I mean, there is a
Right, a little irony.
There's an irony there.
But it sounds like
But,
he's using
um,
his education and expertise, but nothing that specifically is
restricted.
related to his
His job.
his
It's
job.
not like proprietary.
He's not
information.
using
Yeah.
the lab
Right.
equipment.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
I
No.
assume.
I mean, he's
He's
obviously testing municipal water in the lab there.
Yeah.
So he knows what,
He knows how good it is. He
and
knows
what
it.
has to be done to it. Or is
Yeah.
he gonna just go get a sample and take it out to a private lab and,
Yeah, that would be the idea, as a private entity,
yeah,
he wouldn't be testing it at the city lab.
yeah.
Right.
He would have
I
to
would
test it.
hope
at
he
the-
wouldn't be.
Right.
Because that's
what
for
I'm
city
saying.
water.
And maybe we could include something to that,
Do we need to get that fact from him?
well, or underline it, you know, where it says you cannot utilize, you know, any municipal facilities, equipment, data, supplies, you know, even data. And, you know, to make sure that he understands that he can't use any of the data.
Well, it is.
Huh?
It does say here,
Yeah.
specifically, you may not use municipal
Right.
time, facilities, or resources
Oh, that's true. Right.
to conduct your private business. I mean, that is in the
Right.
concluding
Right.
paragraph.
Would it be useful, Ted, for me to go back to Rob and get him to kind of confirm? I mean, is the hangup here that we're concerned that once he's subjected this water to this new process, that he needs to then verify that that water is really good, spiffy water for folks to drink, and that he's not going to use the municipal laboratory, or other resources to do that? Is that what we wanna?
Well,
I mean, he's
that-
pretty,
that
he
was-
was
that
pretty
was my-
emphatic with me, he's not gonna be doing anything related to this job
Well, that's
on
what
his
that's what he said at
time.
the meeting too, so I took away from that the facts that he was representing to us was that this private business would be completely separated and in no way would use city
Right,
resources.
that he's gonna use a private lab. He actually, interestingly, and this isn't reflected in the facts here, but I have talked with him at some length before we ever got to the ethics board, and asked him, to kind of outline these facts for me, and at one point in time, he did work for a private lab, which apparently the Muni, sometimes they work through the private lab for their stuff, and part of the reason he got hired is because he was that good.
Hmm.
Maybe
And,
David's gonna answer it, in some way that could require him to have some document or something to hold the city harmless. I mean, if somebody drinks a bottle of his water, gets sick or whatever, and he works for the city and they file suit against him and they, is there some way of holding this, I mean,
Isn't that beyond our
beyond our
board's
scope, isn't it?
jurisdiction?
Yeah. I would assume that he has his own company that's going to represent this bottling service. The company would be liable for anything that went wrong. But there's no connection between the company and the city other than him.
other than the fact that
raw water.
Right.
all the other bottling companies get the water after it's treated.
So even, that's even one more level removed from the city, because it's even before the city has even treated it or done anything to it, right?
He's just basically getting water from the Kaluna. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
from the, I mean.
And frankly-
frankly, the city didn't do anything to that water.
And you can never, ever prevent somebody from filing a lawsuit. It's meritless But I mean, you could sign any form you want, and if somebody really wanted to sue the city because you worked for the city, then there's nothing you can do. But I don't see anything that we could do that would, one, that would be within our scope. Two, that would actually aid the situation.
Would you
Yeah.
just want any additional facts to be included in here to, you know, would it make
Well-
people feel better to just go back and have him emphasize that
Well, it says
after
here.
the water has actually been treated, any testing associated with that water
Ah.
would not be, you know, done through the use of municipal time or resources? I mean, I think he was pretty clear about,
It says here, none of your duties involve treating water, preparing contracts for the sale of municipal water, monitoring the amount of water sold to local water, or preparing contracts for the construction of water access points. And it sounds, and I think in here also it says somewhere, I remember the word distinct, separate and distinct.
yes, I think it,
Um, I think
it's at the top of the last page there.
The last
talk
page.
about how-
something about being,
Yeah,
the
separate
two,
and distinct from the upstream treatment.
Right.
What he does is so separate and distinct from the upstream treatment.
right.
But I think what Ted was saying is that, you know, you kind of got two issues here. You have sort of the substantive nature of his
Mhm.
work and whether or not that would conflict at all with anything related to the substance of what he's doing. And then you have this separate issue, which is, oh, by the way, even if there is no overlap, just make sure you don't use media time and resources and
Sure.
use stuff, you know, to the, I don't
Even
know
more
if
that's in the concluding paragraph? I mean, I don't, yeah, I mean, if, there's no harm in,
The only thing I could see
Yeah.
adding, you know, would be maybe at the end, somewhere on page 2, when you're describing the facts. You know, maybe just a line to get at Ted's concerns, or, you know,
Mhm.
that, you know, that, well, the point would be that, you know, you represented to us that your private business would in no way utilize municipal resources in its enterprise, or what have you, know, that, because he said that, I mean, and I don't
Yeah, he
think.
did.
and there's
because
no
a-
harm in putting in another sentence just to clarify that, too.
Mhm.
Yeah, because after all, remember, the
Yeah.
idea of the request is that this is his immunity, provided that these are the facts.
Right, any
Mhm.
deviation, all
So,
that's.
that's right, I mean, if his duties
Mhm.
change, if his job changes, if it turns out on the sly, he's really using the lab, well, you know, as long as we're
Okay.
clear in saying, our understanding is that, you know, your private enterprise is gonna be, you know, kind of firewalled out from the use of city resources. So, yes, you get it from both
I
directions.
think that's a good.
Your
add.
duties aren't giving you an unfair
Right.
advantage, and on the other hand, once you've set up this company, it's not gonna wind up clawing back some of the city resources.
That's fair.
And I think once that's set up, and then we say at the end that, you know, and of course, don't be using city resources in the conclusion.
Right.
I think we're covered, and then,
Covered,
yeah.
And of course, the first sentence too, first paragraph, this opinion is without force and effect if things
Or
change.
anything's changed. So I think what I'm gonna do is put in that ad, Harry, somewhere toward the end of this facts of the request section.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll figure
Mhm.
out the right place to put it. It'll be like one sentence probably. And then what I'll probably do to this last page, the paragraph before the conclusion, maybe I'll just strike all of this stuff, in the event your duties or your position change. Maybe I'll strike that all there.
Mhm.
And, you know, maybe put something in the conclusion we concluded, you're probably okay, would not violate as long as you abide by the restrictions above, specifically, blah, blah, blah. I'll have to inform your supervisor in writing. Maybe we put in something here right before the if you have any questions section that just says that if anything pertaining to the duties of your position change or anything else, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay,
That sounds good.
okay,
And I'm comfortable you making those changes and then I can sign it.
okay.
Yeah.
If the rest of the group is okay.
If you guys are okay with that, I'll put those.
I'm sorry, I just realized my
little
chewing
ads
is
in.
gonna be on here probably. Mhm.
Okay.
But our discussion with Water Guy was really good, and you know,
Mhm.
and it gave me two insights. One, I was actually able to have a reasonably intelligent conversation with him about his process
Mhm.
through the use of the Magic Schoolhouse book on recycling. Kid and I had just read a few months
Really?
ago, and so I was like, "Oh yeah, right. I remember that's when the bus got stuck in the globber where they can gobble all this stuff." Yeah.
And two, you realize what a business opportunity, and you're gonna be one of the 8 contractors.
Not
right?
anymore, because not to gross you all out, but that
Your
poor.
raw water idea.
I hope you might appreciate that poor kayaker who drowned in Eklutna. The reason why they did not send divers down to fish out his body is that he drowned by the intake pipe For the municipal
Is that true?
water. Oh, yeah, they said the currents are too strong at that section of the lake because of
What?
water flowing into the city's intake pipe.
So there is a body up there.
So think about that. Well, at least there was. Now
Well-
it's in your drinking water. So just every time you turn
Wow.
the tap, think fortified.
I was
Just thought I'd throw that out there. Have a nice day, everybody.
I was just.
I'm on a
in,
well, so I don't.
Use some arsenic.
I was- I'm digressing, but I just was in Palau, and in Palau they get all their water from this city aquifer, basically, and they've had a drought. So for the first time in like 20 years, the water's gotten so low, they actually got to see what was at the bottom. There was a whole school of crocodiles cruising around, fish, all kinds of stuff in there that everybody's been drinking.
Yeah, which does not kill you, makes these.
Yeah.
I guess so.
I know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amazing.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Maybe in the introductory little paragraph, I mean, just for, as far as historical things, the last sentence, this opinion is based on facts disclosed in your request, you might wanna add that, and discussion with the, I mean, just so if people are
Oh,
reading
right.
this,
Oh,
they will
right.
go, oh, I don't see that.
Oh, you just-
Mhm.
because I added that when I was working on the other one.
And your discussion,
Yeah.
right, and.
Yeah, at our meeting, and then you have to put,
Yeah.
you should put the date of
Yeah, I'll put
when
it.
the meeting was.
Yep.
You're right, I added that to the Wilbur one when I was working on it this morning. I was like, oh, yeah, well, he also showed up, so I'm
Okay.
gonna put that in too.
Good. Okay. Alrighty,
All right, very good.
Good. Thank you, Lisa, for doing
you're
that.
welcome.
What, another one? 6F?
Yeah.
6F.
Oh. This is like forum shopping. It's
Oh,
not
no,
even-
wait a minute, I think this one, oh, yeah, this is already done, right? This is, or did we not do this
I thought
one?
we did.
No, Dee's supposed to write a short paragraph for this one, and
This
just,
one was great, this is the
Have you
second
missed
meeting
this
too, this was
Really?
awesome.
They knew it's like forum shopping. They knew I was leaving, so I thought, we'll sneak some in while Nesbitt's out of the
So
office.
here's what the,
Get something done.
Here's what the guy wants. The guy works for the city. He wants to bid on something at like the foreclosure sale or whatever, right? You know, when they
Mhm.
do that, they have to file a notice of public notices of intent to solicit. The requirement in the code is 7 days. It just says you've got to file this within 7 days. And he's like, and basically he's like, I filed within 2 days. And he says, I'm very sorry. Please allow me this time.
What?
Check the last
But the
thing.
reason that we got it is because his bid was lower than.
Oh, this dodgy within dodgy. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was
So-
lower than, and so the other guy, we needed on his because he was higher, hoping to get this guy's bid, and it would be part of it.
Oh, I see.
So they basically just wanted us to waive that
Yeah, so they could.
Oh.
Save a
requirement. So
few
that was
dollars.
easy peasy. We were like, we were done in like 2
We
minutes.
were
were
just
like,
shocked, we're
yeah.
like, we never get ethics things that are this simple.
Right?
Yeah, just want to start putting straight.
So
Well,
who'd you-
apparently, because D like encouraged him strongly, you know, don't make a there's nothing here that's, you
Yeah.
know, and so.
Please allow, please.
Well, and then the dodgy part was that, what I think the way D put it is that he and his someone he's in business with, they had the top 2 bids,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know,
Mhm.
and so, you know, well, at any rate,
So the guy with the top bid withdrew.
then withdrew.
Oh.
Because it was gonna be
Then
cheaper.
withdrew.
I
so-
wonder how that happened. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So D is drafting that one too?
Yeah, three working on it.
All right. Good.
All right, and then, oh, we talked about this one last week. This one we resolved. I think Dee's going to have to work on this one too, the
Yeah.
antique pumper, and we said that was okay. They want to raffle off, fire department wants to raffle off
Oh.
2 free tickets
Hmm.
from Alaska Airlines for the purposes of raising money for an antique pumper for the museum.
Sure. That sounds fine. Yeah. that
she's
sounds
gonna write
fine.
a question, a little paragraph on that. And then there's this one about the police and fire retirement board.
Is that also 6?
That's another question, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And she was gonna,
She was going to draft something.
yeah.
Police department.
They-
Is the police and fire retirement board exempt?
From filing disclosures of present economic interest.
The retirement board.
Yeah, and I think this is another one where D said this is in part a legal issue because what
Mhm.
that retirement board is. Is it a
Yeah.
municipal board or not? She says
Well,
that sometimes it counts as city and
You
sometimes
have
it's
to be a
independent.
retired, or either retired or active police officer or fireman to be on the board,
Right.
Right.
you know.
That's right. But if the board's not a city board, since you're a retired,
Right.
you're retired, you don't have to file disclosure. You're not
Right.
subject to this code.
Mhm.
But if the board is like this or the AWU board or something like that, then yeah, then they do have to file. And Dee says the law is just not consistent. Sometimes that board is treated like it's part of the city, and
Is
sometimes
she gonna
it's
seek a
treated like-
legal,
I
something
think
from?
she said she was going to seek out.
So no wonder she didn't
something
show
else.
up. She had like 8 projects.
She's afraid to come.
I know.
Oh, here's another thing, Dee. Research the origins of the city and where it actually came from.
Yeah, really.
I take it Falsey's already done that, but.
So 6H. Oh, is this, what is this?
This is the
This
code
looks
rewrite.
suspiciously like a code rewrite.
Yes.
Oh, really? Has it been
And-
done and I wasn't there? Yeah.
Darn.
Mhm.
Well, the new piece of information is that, you know, Assemblymember Flynn asked to be liaison
Yeah.
to the rewrite.
Mhm.
And he is actually going to be at the Ethics and Elections Committee meeting this Wednesday
Mm.
to talk about the rewrite.
Oh.
We don't know yet what he's going to ask
Has he
for.
been involved in this?
He hasn't, not yet. Dee said at last meeting that she had had some contact with him, but they weren't able to get together. But he's going to be at this meeting, and I think you got to invite to
Yeah,
the meeting
I'll be there.
specifically because I don't
Oh,
know if he's
this
going
Wednesday?
to want. It's this Wednesday. He's going. I don't know how much involvement he's going to want. If he's going to want to set up a panel for the rewrite, or if he's going to let it go on the way it's been going on, or what he has in mind. So.
Okay. Is
I
there
don't know,
any
you might
chance-
want to be at that meeting too, since you've been
Lisa,
involved
I
so
would.
far.
I'm just getting on a plane on Thursday morning.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah, I think
okay.
it's going to be a hard meeting. for
Okay.
us. Yeah.
Yeah,
What time
Wednesdays
is
are.
it, Lisa?
Wednesday from 12 to 1 in this room.
Maybe possible. Maybe possible.
Wednesday's
Okay,
a really
thank
tough
you.
day for me. Is there some way I can get a a heads up on what he's interested? Like something about what he wants, or maybe it's just that I ask questions. I don't know.
And we don't know.
Okay.
I think he's been trained, David. The only thing I know is that Dee has mentioned that he wanted to get together with her.
Mhm.
I think with me. I mean, we haven't really.
Right.
Now, what's in red here, is that what he's proposing?
No,
No,
this is,
no.
I tried to stitch together.
Yeah,
some-
I don't think he hasn't dug into this like that, has he?
No, he
So
hasn't.
it doesn't have any.
This was, I think, a part of the original effort to get the state ethics
Mhm.
code and ours more or
Yeah.
less to become
This is just-
sort of a seamless document.
Yeah.
And I think Dee
Yeah.
said the conclusion, maybe that it's just not going to work. It's going to be more complicated
Mhm.
than what we even have now.
Can I ask
Mhm.
you guys, just for a little background for me, how long has this kind of thinking about doing the rewrite been going on?
About, what, a
Is this
year, I guess?
About a year?
Yeah, probably. I think
Yeah.
Assemblyman Trainee came to us
Yeah.
about a year ago and said, "Hey, this is too complicated. This is too long. Let's streamline this. Get this down to 5 pages." We thought, well, I don't know if we can get it to 5, but it was
Yeah.
the concept was we would go through and try to really pare it down.
Mhm.
I think, and also while we were there, try to fill in some gaps and holes and
Yeah.
things that we'd come across in the last few years. Some of the areas that were kind of bootstrapped and didn't make a lot of sense.
And again, that's the other trend, by the way, in terms of ethics codes nowadays,
What is the trend?
is to make them shorter,
Right.
more principled, more
Right.
aspirational. The downside is, this is my understanding, it's an imperfect understanding, but my understanding that this code was originally written that way, and that by and large, the assembly wanted. The downside of writing a very broad, aspirational code is that then instead of us looking at specific provisions, we're saying, well, okay, is that
Mhm.
an act of, honesty, or, is that, maintaining, or is that a complicated, that the assembly wanted a lot more legal protection. Yeah, they wanted a lot more specificity. And so they built in all of these much more, they basically turned it from an ethics document into a legal document,
Mhm.
which is why we need 3 lawyers.
Right.
4 lawyers right at any given time to fish through this document. If you make it 5 pages,
Mhm.
then you're relying more on this board to sort of reasonably and
Just think of how much-
non-politically- But I think we've proven that we've been, that we're education first, that we're not looking for gotcha type moments. I think we've been very good about being nonpartisan.
And principled. I think we're really good about trying to stay within the spirit of, Yeah.
Yeah, so I think,
So.
so I think it can be done. I mean, I think you could take, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think you could take the first 5 pages of this, you could take the preamble, which I love.
Yes.
And then that list of prohibited
Yes.
conduct, add in a few other specific things, and then have the process for notices of potential violation.
Perfect.
And
Can you
then-
get that ready for our next meeting and take a look at
I'll have
it?
that.
No, but I agree though. I think that's the right concept.
You do?
What happened is we went through and we had delegated to individual people to say, hey, can you go to the state and see what's missing out of ours that we can, or no, see what's in the state that we can add to the, from our existing city code and put into the state, because the state was only, what, 10 or 15 pages?
But the state's just the state statutes, but then there's a whole truckload of regs
Right.
to support that, so I mean, that's.
So it didn't,
It's not just-
so our original game plan, I think, just didn't really work
Yeah.
very well.
Can I ask you, so I've looked, I mean, I know Dee, when she first said, lucky for David Nesbitt, that he and I can't get together so easily, Lisa, I'm you're in David's shoes.
Yeah.
I looked at some of the state stuff and I thought there's not really a perfect overlap.
No.
But question for you guys, is there general dissatisfaction with sort of this kind of tripartite way of doing things where you've got union employees, you've got elected officials, you've got, is there dissatisfaction with breaking it down that way, or is there general satisfaction with it? Is the frustration that, sometimes I think, at least since I've been involved, which is not nearly as much as you guys, sometimes we get into these questions and we go, yeah, I can't really conclude that's an ethics violation, but that just doesn't seem like the right result. Is it that we've run into those situations where we think that maybe certain aspects of the code don't lead to what we consider at the end of the day to be the right ethical conclusion, or there's a lot of questions, but do people dislike that 3-part approach? Do they feel that that's too cumbersome?
I think the 3-part approach leads to problems, because
Yeah.
because we got wrapped around the axle on a couple of provisions where you're talking about the mayor versus
Yeah.
the assembly versus other employees, and you start combining them, and then, well, this provision will then relate, see this section, then
Right.
see this section, and then you start circulating. What's
Yeah.
that provision that I'm talking about specifically?
The one was political activity, and
Yeah.
union
Yeah.
employees are not allowed to engage in political activity.
Mhm.
And elected officials are.
Can, right.
Except
Mhm.
elected officials, now we're a whole section
Yeah.
later in the code.
Mhm.
Elected officials may not knowingly allow or
Mhm.
direct municipal
Employees.
employees to
Right.
violate their section of code. Well, of course, it's hard for elected
Yeah.
officials to do much of anything.
A mayor doesn't
without
act on
getting
his own.
some resources,
Right, right.
using some municipal resources in the process.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
And so as it turns out, so you can get an elected official saying, oh yeah, I'm free to, what was it, I'm gonna photocopy some stuff, a flyer or this or that, that's got a political intent. And I'm free to do that because the code says that I am free to engage in I'm a political agent, I'm an elected official. Oh, sorry, by the way, but did you do the wraparound? The
Right.
wraparound said go back 10 pages.
Right.
And note that you also cannot allow this municipal employee to.
And that came up specifically in proposed ordinances and things like that, where the unions were coming out strong, and then the mayor felt an obligation to present his side of the story. But you couldn't be argumentative, right? I mean, they were all, and so was he using municipal resources to provide, to further his agenda?
Which the mayor is allowed to do, ironically,
Right.
the mayor is allowed to do, except
Right.
that there's no way the mayor can really do that without directing employees to
Exactly.
it.
So
And
then we
it's
got-
suddenly it's a violation.
I get
Right, so then we started thinking, okay, does copying things and distributing that, is that a use of municipal resources? Is having his assistant do something for him? Or,
Right.
then we got, oh.
And some of those questions will never go away, like
Right.
where that line of causality ends. But at the end of the day, should the mayor be allowed to use municipal resources to create what is in essence, let's suppose in essence we thought of that commercial as being a political commercial, partisan commercial. The answer is no, and you don't need a lot of jargon to get to that. You just need a basic
Mhm.
principle. No one in the city should be using city
Exactly.
resources for partisan political activity. Now that leaves to this board to interpret what is partisan political activity
That's
and
right.
where does that cause out in.
But at least-
those things don't end.
No.
I think what this code is a
So what I'm
classic
hearing
example,
from
like
you-
when you try to detail it away, we'll just stipulate away all of the,
That's right.
interpret. All you wind up doing is creating more things that need to be interpreted, or you wind up creating a sort of an entangled, where you start getting these
Right.
feedback loops and.
So I hadn't thought about it specifically, but the more we think about that tripart
It's problematic.
It sounds like that probably caused more conflict and confusion than it would be to try to simplify it.
Certainly for the political stuff. I mean, I know Dean has always said that the political, that
That's
piece
the tricky
is
stuff, yeah.
super problematic. I mean, there is something for me that's very easy, like, okay, where does this person fall in?
Right.
This person an elected
Right.
official, is this person an employee, is this person? It's kind of easy to go to the, I don't know to the extent to which certain sections are incompatible with each other when they shouldn't be.
Right.
Well, and I guess that's the thing that's worth like sitting down and thinking about. I mean, like the idea of like, why would you separate the three out? And at least the
Right.
one is that, you know, the elected officials are expected to also have like full-time jobs and careers, right? And so, whereas the muni employees are not, right? You know, and so that might lead you to say, well, there's certain things that muni employees really shouldn't be allowed to do because this is their full-time job.
Mhm.
Whereas an assembly person, well, it's not their full-time job. They're also doing other things and other
But on the other
interests.
side too, if there's a conflict, there's a conflict. I mean, right?
Yeah.
I mean, either there's a conflict or there's not.
Yeah,
To me,
that's
it
right.
could be that simple. I don't know. Short answer is after a year, we haven't really. We
Right.
honestly, we tried. I mean, really, what we were trying to do is try to simplify it by just taking the state and then adding a few things from the city to complete it, and that really was kind of a shortcut approach. I don't think we ever actually sat down and had these types of discussions
No.
that I can recall, where we're trying to figure out, okay, what do we really want,
Structure really makes sense.
versus can we just borrow from something else?
I keep thinking, David, like about our ethics code, you know, for lawyers, which I think is a
Yep.
pretty gosh darn nice code. I'm
Yeah.
sort of impressed by it, but there's so much that's done kind of like as Kathleen described. The meat of the matter is in all of those notes.
Right.
What are they called?
Yeah,
And
the
that's what we
commentary.
discussed last time. We
The
discussed
commentary.
a simpler
But it's a
code,
very
but with
simple code
commentary.
with a
No.
fairly robust commentary that is quite useful.
And that is something that we could consider doing,
That's what I would
because,
do. I think
and we
that'd
could
be great.
include, like we would in one of our things, we could include some of our prior decisions as examples. I mean, this is
Right.
very similar to what we would see in the statutes.
Right.
But I don't know, we.
It's a big conception. I'll
Well,
tell you
that's-
what I
that's
worry
what I-
about, you guys. I do worry about this. I mean, I've just worked for many decades on writing legislation
Yeah.
and regulations and things. It's a big job.
That's why we don't want to recreate the wheel, right?
Yeah, and you don't, and you don't want to embark on it. You don't want to say, oh my god, we have to get going right now. And then you just start,
Mhm.
you get to the forest, you're working on the forest, you can't see
Mhm.
the trees. We do need a conceptual, overarching
Mhm.
framework that we all think is going to make sense.
We haven't done that.
Yeah.
We just haven't. We
Yeah.
just haven't done that.
And
And
I
I
think-
think it's a good something that we ought to spend. Probably what we should do is, sorry, Lisa,
Mm.
carve out
Separate
some
meeting.
time. Maybe carve out like maybe since you've been so successful at proceeding through all of these different things. Maybe the next meeting we can carve out like a half an hour or 45 minutes and just say, okay, let's just spend some time thinking about what we want to do and where we want to go. I think that would be very fruitful. Because I think where we left it before I left was the last thing Dee said to me was, we are trying to put the city and the state code together, and she said, I don't think it's going to work. I think we need to start over. And then when I went to the last meeting, I think you were sitting next to me for the assembly subcommittee. I mentioned that, I think I even said, yeah, we might need to start over on our project.
What did they say?
It was nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really, really accommodating. I mean,
Okay.
they're really.
Really.
Well, there was also Ernie was there.
Right,
Ernie
Ernie was
Hall
there.
and was it Mr. Peterson?
Peterson was there. Dick wasn't there,
Dick was not there.
which would have been the one that just 5 pages. Just make
He
it 5
would be the
pages.
one
I
to
was
say-
just wondering if you have strong opinions. You know.
Well, and this is
No,
why
they're-
this is why I think it's important
They're
to
very
have this
supportive.
board representation at this next meeting
Mhm.
when they discuss this, because there are two, Croft and Dunbar, the two new assembly
Oh.
members, are on this committee.
Oh.
The chair has changed to Peterson.
Oh.
We still have Trainee on the meeting, and then we have Assembly Member Flynn who's piped in and said, "I want to be a liaison."
Right.
So obviously, there's going to be some opinion.
That's a
So
whole
this
new deal,
board, who
yeah.
is probably the most familiar with the problems of the Code of Ethics, needs to be represented if there's going to be
Yeah.
some sort of concept discussed at that
That's
meeting.
this Wednesday.
That's this Wednesday.
It's always hard to go to those kinds of meetings when you don't have your own view of what you think might be a path forward.
Well, but
But
that
maybe
is
it's a listening session.
well, but that is in and of itself something.
Right.
We don't have a path. We need to determine a path.
Right.
There's no reason to start trying to bluff on or try to
No, we can't
imagine
do
a
that.
path when
Right.
we don't have one. The path was borrowing from other statutes.
Yeah.
We are realizing that path
May
is
not
a
be
that's just a dead end. We are creating a new path. That is kind of our position right now.
Yeah. We
And
don't know what path.
and then we can invite Assemblyman Flynn to help us on our path. I think that would be probably our statement. Unless,
That's, and, but I like the idea, simpler,
Yeah.
principled, and I love the idea with commentary, you know.
I like that.
I mean, the law one's good, but, you know, but even, you want even simpler, the new nursing code of ethics, it's 1 page long. It's nine principles, but then the commentary
Right.
is longer, you know, I think, but it's like, here are the 9 principles, done. And then, okay, and then you go through the commentary to
Yeah.
get the interpretation of each principle.
at one point, you and I talked about looking for a survey of other cities and other states. and
Oh,
see
you
what
missed,
they
you
do.
weren't here, I've been doing that.
You have.
So I started to.
How is that going? Was that helpful at all?
I know, I was
Things
thinking,
like-
like, what do
I
other
haven't.
similarly sized cities do? Like,
What-
I know
So- so-
what was your
So
summary?
the good news is that in many ways, we're doing the right thing, that we're, in terms of, that we have a board, that it's a volunteer citizen board, that it has an advisory role and a compliance role.
Enforcement, yeah.
So we're at like,
That's
you know,
good.
we are like, how should we put it, like, right, that's the best practice.
Good.
That's out there right now.
Good.
What I was saying at the beginning of meeting today, the place where we're lacking, in terms of what we do is the training side.
Mm.
That we don't do near, I mean, like, if you look at places like Denver's the model city apparently right now, as far as this kind of stuff, and their board and the city generally is very, very active in
Mm.
creating a big training, and they have, what, I think they said 15,000 municipal employees.
How long
And
is
they're
their
very
code?
big, because part of the idea is to move from process to culture, right? You know, and like, the way you move from process to culture is by getting the ethics code out of this room and, you know, sort of like sticking it under people's nose and just getting the, and not just in a kind of like, here's the PowerPoint, go through the PowerPoint, you're done, but like really kind of going through. And so we're talking about, I don't know if you were here, we've decided to start going to the boards and commissions, at least 1 or 2 of us, and we're gonna start in July. And just, you know, having discussions, okay, let's look through some cases and let's talk about, here's the code, here are the standards, here's this case, how do we work it? And like, just really try to like get the ethics on people's radar. That's the main thing that we're not doing, that you know, model cities are doing right now.
Could we look at, kind of like you were saying, David, could we look at some of the other codes from other cities?
Yeah, what does
I mean,
Denver's
I don't
code
know,
look
like
like?
a
Yeah,
huge
I-
city which
right.
has,
Yeah.
you know, maybe a multitude of different municipal, you know, I don't know.
I'll send their code. I
agencies
didn't.
and
No, I
whatnot.
have to admit, I did not get a chance to get through their. I didn't get a chance to
Look
read
at
their- I
Denver's
read-
code.
Really, let's think about
I read
this.
It was an
Yeah.
ethnography on the
Right.
process of making their code and then how it's
Yeah.
working.
Sure.
And it focused, you know, more on sort of like the functions of the
Right.
board, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
didn't actually have the code. But I'll pull.
But
it
maybe
through
pull up
yourself.
Denver's code, or
Yeah,
maybe pull up
Seattle or
Wash
something.
Seattle's, or.
But if Denver, we know, is sort of a progressive city,
Yeah.
that's sort of lead in the past, you know, maybe there we
Yeah.
have some.
Or
think
Portland
about
or
what's
something.
Portland, think about what
I'm
is
trying to
it
think
all
of kind
about?
of
It's
compatible
political
cities.
campaigning stuff, there's
Mhm.
gifts.
Yeah.
There's issues of contemporary employment, or, you know.
Right.
There's really certain categories
Yeah.
of stuff that really have to be
Right.
really consistent across the board, no matter where you live, right?
So
Don't you think?
maybe we can just pull those up and not, maybe borrowing isn't the right word, but
Oh,
anything that we,
there's not gonna be borrowing.
if we don't have to recreate the wheel, all is better if we can. But I still like that concept. And again, we can kind of
I'll send some-
explore this more, of having it, like you say, the preamble, a couple of general principles, some commentary, and then the rest. I mean, in full disclosure, we're empowering this board a little bit more to the extent that there'll be more interpretation.
Right.
That's right.
But I think my guess is that people would want that rather than the detailed attempt to rule everything out. I mean, or
I
try to
think-
account for every possible scenario.
At least I think we're far enough in the process where this board, I think we could say, has a solid track record, at least,
Yeah.
you know, since I've been on it, of being nonpartisan, not engaging in kind of gotcha type
Mhm.
moments. Yeah, we've had a couple points, like when, what's his face wanted to move the election date.
Yeah,
You know,
what's his
and
face?
who was that? That was
Birch.
Birch wanted to move the election date, so, which was pretty controversial, and there are members of the assembly who were really, you know, not happy with that decision. But even then, I mean, I think that was not a particularly partisan type decision.
No.
I think most people sort of got it. I mean, you wouldn't actually.
That was actually one of the
my students-
easier things
I have to
to
admit, my
decide.
students wrote their final exam on that in professional
Yeah.
ethics, and not one of them thought that that was a particularly
Yeah.
hard call.
That was an easy exam.
Can't really.
Yeah.
Professor Kelly comes up with such creative.
All I had to do was watch the news. Watch him on the news.
It was actually it was actually the enterprising students actually went and found our
Did they?
opinion.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and you can separate the lazy ones from they
Did
went
they find the
and found
KTVU article where you said,
like,
what was your
"Whoa."
famous quote that was on the news?
Oh, that isn't a conflict of
Yeah.
interest. I don't know what.
Yeah, right.
That's right. Yeah, so,
That was on the news.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they found that. That made it
Oh, they were
easy
the enterprising
exam.
ones were
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Inviting you on the nose.
Okay,
So for next time, I
Yeah.
will. You know what I'll send out is I will send to Lisa, and then she can include. A couple codes. I'll include the ABA's model rules of professional conduct and the nursing code of ethics, just as but I'll
Yeah.
send the Denver's out. I'll send this article that I read this morning. Just you can just take a look at it if you have the time and just. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think part of it, and we started talking about this a little bit last meeting too, because we had this special meeting because we fell so far behind. But then we blasted through everything, and we actually had like 45 minutes to just talk.
Mhm.
And it is true that this board has suffered, I think, from being so overwhelmed by getting through its homework that we don't have nearly enough kind of pull back from the trees and see the forest type conversations. Like, okay, are we happy with what we're doing function wise, and are we, where do we want the code to be? Are we unhappy with the code? And
let me ask
you
this.
know, I mean,
As a group here, I would feel comfortable if you're going to pull up a couple of codes. I would propose looking for or pulling up those codes that match kind of what we're just talking about here, which is more the principle plus commentary or whatever.
Right.
But I'm not interested in seeing another state's 30-page code.
Yeah, right.
I'm interested in looking for a code that we are looking for.
Okay.
Not a survey of what is everybody doing. Find the one that we're looking for, and then we can kind of use that as a.
Okay.
If you're okay with that, as opposed
I'll
to
do
doing
that,
a
yeah.
full survey.
Right, I'll do
Just
that,
one-
yeah, I'll see if I can find, see what I can find in terms of
Are you
finding
comfortable with
something.
that?
that's- yeah,
Is is this, because I don't want to jump ahead, but I don't see any reason to do a survey and see what other people are doing. I want one that's going to look like the one we want,
Right.
which is short, simple, principled, and a preamble.
Well, or at least see one that's different. I mean, I think we have
Yeah.
fallen into the category of a more
Yes.
complex legalistic
Right.
code. It might be refreshing just to see what does a more aspirational,
Yes.
principled code look like, and then scratch our head and you're like, wow,
Yeah.
Is it
would that
really
actually be better? Or can we
Right.
immediately see now that we're staring at it?
Okay.
Oh,
There we go.
We're pretty used to dealing with the concrete problems that come up. Oh, actually, this isn't going to work. This is just
Yeah.
too broad. Or we might go, oh no, this.
Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Good,
It's a
okay.
good- It's a good.
All right, I'll
start.
do that. I'll do
Good.
that for our.
Can I ask
next
this
meeting.
question, Lisa, for this meeting on Wednesday from noon to 1? It just feels to me like we would be remiss if we did not have some
I know.
representation there.
And I don't know that I'm
It's-
available
it's
on
not a-
Wednesday.
It's not a long forward.
No.
I think it's a tough week for a lot of people. It's a
Yeah.
tough week for me. I know.
Are you available, Terry?
Noon to 1 on Wednesday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can do that.
Just
Can you?
a couple of us
Okay.
could be there. And Terry, what I could do is try to come on down. I have a really bad week this week. And I just have lots of bad stuff. I'm trying to head out of town. I'm behind on stuff.
Yeah, and I just got back
You
into
just got
town,
back.
and this is a
yeah.
terrible
But it
week
would
for me.
be, I would hate, I think we should go. It would be nice if we could have a couple of us there.
Well, especially
Yeah.
because we have a
Yeah.
whole new group, it sounds like, a
Yeah,
whole
I
new
don't even
group
know if
of
I
people.
should go, you guys, because I'm not really on the board.
Right.
Does that matter?
But you've been a part of the efforts that have been
Yeah.
made so far, so.
Yeah.
Would,
Oh, yeah, I think
would
you're
Dee go
officially
to
our
this?
kind of co-counsel, right?
Dee doesn't typically go to these, does she?
No, she doesn't.
No, okay.
Okay, good.
But you'll be there.
I'll be there,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
Do you know
Okay.
where that's going to be at?
In this room.
Okay.
12 to
Okay.
1.
I will
Uh-huh.
very much try to make it, Terry.
Okay.
I actually put
And
it,
no worries if you can't.
I put their agenda in your book under past 7A,
Okay.
and I believe you guys are, you're number 2 on the agenda, and then number 3 is the code rewrite, and I think
Oh.
that was structured purposefully,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
for an
When I've
update.
gone in the past, they're very accommodating, they take us up right away.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, they'll see me sitting there and be like, okay, let's talk about ethics code stuff now, then I'm out in 10 minutes.
That's super
Okay.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, they're always, now that was Ernie, Paul,
Mhm.
but And who's the chair now?
Pete Peterson.
Oh, okay. Whoa. Oh, so he's been at these meetings.
He's been there before.
So he's a rollover. Okay,
Mhm.
so at least there's some continuity.
He and Dick are both
Okay.
rollovers. Then we've got the new members, Eric Croft
Yeah.
and Forrest Dunbar.
Okay.
So-
That's too bad. I'd like to meet those two. But I'll be at the next one.
Okay.
I'll go to the next meeting.
Oh yeah, and that was the other thing that you missed.
Yeah.
Dee and I and Lisa went to the
Orientation for new
the
members.
new folks, and I gave them a spiel about the code.
Oh,
and
good.
Work with the code.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
and I think
It was excellent.
Good.
You would be very proud of him. They
Good.
you had about 20 minutes, right? Maybe
Good.
20 minutes.
Is this at the assembly?
Uh,
No, at a
The-
subcommittee.
the clerk's office put together an orientation for the new members, and they were one of the presenters on the
Nice.
second day of
yeah,
orientation.
so I think it.
Well done.
Yeah.
And apparently Croft actually.
I was telling Terry that I meant to queue up this last assembly meeting because Eric Croft gave a disclosure of potential conflict.
Good.
And he just said, well, I don't think that, and this, that, and that, blah, 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 blah. And the member's like, you know how normally?
Yeah.
And Eric Croft
Yeah.
goes, the Board of Ethics says that all I'm supposed to do is give you
Uh-huh.
guys the facts and you guys have to make the decision, not
Right.
me.
That's
and so
right.
they were all like, oh, well, the question number one. So they
That's
went through all the
right.
questions.
Good.
And then it was like, he
And
had
they
no.
determined that he did have a conflict.
Well,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So after just going
Well,
After blowing up.
It wasn't.
Oh, wow.
It was even more
That's
glorious.
good.
It was even more glorious than that. That he was listening because it was like no conflict, no conflict. But where the chair, Gray Jackson, she said, okay, well that's all well and fine, but I'm going to rule that you have a conflict because this just doesn't look good.
No kidding.
Yeah, and she
Right
goes,
on.
so you go have a cup of coffee somewhere, and you know, they booted him out.
Is Gray Jackson the chair of the assembly?
Mhm. She
Wow.
goes, so based on
Yeah.
that, the principle of how the
Nice.
public would see this,
'Cause
she was
she's a
just
big-
like, this doesn't look good.
She's a big fan of our committee.
Yeah,
She's
yes.
every time I've seen her at these meetings.
I was very proud. I
Yeah,
just thought,
that's-
boy, that Terry did a good job. man.
Good.
Way to go, Terry.
I think it was more Dee than
Yeah.
Terry. Terry started doing the philosophy. I was like, as you know, you now have a sacred public trust. She's like, come on, let's move on. It's like, I don't mean to lecture to you, but as
But
you
I
now know,
will.
I
Good.
It was good. It was good.
What else do we have today?
Okay, let's move on. That's next is 7A, which is
What we were just talking
The
about.
meeting.
Oh.
The meeting.
I think we're at it.
That's it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Nice. Well done,
Well,
guys.
I'm telling you, when we
Yeah, you
when we
missed
don't-
it, man.
I missed
You
everything.
missed it all. It
I
was
did.
It was a pretty crazy meeting.
You guys hammered through a lot of work.
That was, I'm telling you, yeah, it's too bad. That was one of the best meetings we've ever had.
Yeah.
I do remember listening. I was listening to the recordings last night, trying to get some minutes done, and I do remember that there was supposed to be some sort of penalty for those who skipped out of the phase of going through 200 disclosures. Becky and you, that you are to provide dinner for us at some point.
I skipped out of how
Homemade
many?
meal.
200.
There was
Like,
over
you should have seen
200
it. 200
present economic
Oh, because it was
disclosures.
It was like
Homemade meal?
Present.
in one,
Homemade meal.
in one packet. Like it was like
It was
like
It was that
this many
big.
just
Really?
disclosures, present economic, and probably like
Not teacher
10% of
disclosures.
them like really were problematic. And so
They got
we really
pulled,
had
and
to,
we've
like,
got some on
really?
hold.
We had to like really
Rescheduled
slowly
meeting?
fish. Yeah.
Was that your extra meeting?
Extra
The
meeting.
extra meeting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's all we did for the whole month.
Wow.
Just sort of fish
No
through,
kidding.
Fish through. Fish
Well, good
through.
job, guys. Yeah, that's awesome.
Good
Yeah.
to see ya.
Well, thank you. It's good to be
Welcome
back.
back. Okay, everybody.
Well, anything else? Can I get the gavel back? Will you?
Oh
hand it
yeah,
back?
here we'll have the
He's kinda getting
ceremony.
attached to
We'll
it.
have the ceremony of returning
Getting
together.
attached to it.
But no, but I would say like so in terms of the longer term projects, one is to get
Yeah.
on to the training thing a little bit more and start visiting. Lisa, how many we have? 70 boards and commissions.
75-ish.
Wow.
And so like my attitude is if we can just start visiting even 2 a month. It would take 3
Yeah.
years, but at least we're rotating through, right?
It's like credit card payments.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. That we're
It
just-
only takes 3 years.
It's like we're just
And then the membership will
rotating
completely
through.
turn
Well, that's right. And then it's time to like,
Start over.
Start over. You know, I think.
Yeah, very
I
good.
think,
Why
you know,
don't you just take the boards and commissions, you know, the list of them, and say, okay, can you go visit these 4?
Yeah.
David,
Sure.
go visit these 4.
Sure.
Terry, go visit these 4. Kathleen,
Yeah.
go.
Over the next 3 years, we'll visit these
Yeah,
4.
you know,
And
so- and then you can report back
yeah.
at the next meeting.
No, that makes
yeah,
sense.
I I think that's right, you know, and so I think, but I do think we need to.
Because there's no way we can all be
No.
every board.
No,
No.
that's my idea. My idea is that, you know, we start visiting at least at least a couple a month, and it's, and it's a couple of us. Like, it would be nice to have more than one. I think it'd be more fun if you have company, right?
Yeah.
But at least even if
Yeah.
it is one, like, it's just, if nothing else, just to start making, if nothing else, just to make a presence. Like, oh, look, here is the Board of Ethics, and remember, there is this ethics code, right? Here are some issues that
No, that's good.
constantly come up, that we get these disclosures saying, well, I won't vote on this if I got, well, that's not enough. It's not, you're not even allowed just to vote, you're not even allowed to talk about this stuff, right? You know, and here's the, you know, I think it'd be good just to start getting out, and if we can actually get, you know, some cases that we can run through with them, they might actually.
Good.
Well, the one example we have of Terry's orientation is a perfect example that can be effective.
It's true, absolutely.
I'm gonna have to borrow
Well, you
some
know,
notes from you.
I've had many people who've said that 15 minutes with me changed them.
I've heard that.
Most of them said they lost the will to live. Still life-changing.
I
So-
found it to be. It has. It has. No
So it
question.
sounds
It
like,
wouldn't be the same
Ter-
without you. It's true.
Terry, you've got something you're drafting, is that right? Or you
Yes,
got-
I'm working
you're
on.
working on
I'm working
something?
on oh gosh, yeah, I've got the training
Oh.
video, but I've got a request for advisory opinion that
Okay.
I'm finishing. I just
finishing.
I need to talk to Dee, and Lisa gave me the minutes from the guy who
Okay.
signed off on the form, but his wife was involved.
So we'll be able to do that next meeting. And then Dee's got several small projects and one medium-sized project, it sounds like.
She's got, what does she have again? She has.
She's got several
dollars for
opinions.
canines. She
Yes.
has,
How long are you out of town?
I'm out of time for about 10 days.
Oh, a long time, so you can't do it in the next month.
It's gonna be hard for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
is
I
there,
can kind of help her with some of
I'm just wondering
there's
if-
a few issues teed up here, that, like that whole issue of English on
Yeah.
boards and commissions.
And she's got our notice of potential violation, which is the one.
is there something that we
Um,
could take off her plate and give to somebody else? Just to, it sounds like she had like 4 small things and,
Well, she had Kathleen get the information for
Okay.
notice of potential violation 2016-1.
which I'm sure you
Can
did.
Can you write up the response for that one?
Which one was that?
Can you draft that?
Yeah.
Okay, just throw it. Anytime we just draft it, it's always up. I mean, don't. It's just something we'll take a look at. But as long as we have something on paper we can poke around with, then that'll be great. Something
At
we
least
can
it gets
take
the
off.
ball rolling.
Yeah.
I know
Exactly.
I fall into that. It's sort of like, I don't
yeah.
want to bring anything to stuff like the
Right.
Wilbur thing. Well, it's not
No.
done, so I don't want to bring it at all.
Just
But
bring
would
it
have
in.
rather have brought it and Lisa.
And was
Hey,
there
well,
one, Terry, was the Wilbur one, like the water guys? The water guy, we basically said, you can rely on what we pretty much said, this is not a problem. And you can rely on that, but we are gonna follow it up with something that papers our determination. Was Wilbur the same way?
Wilbur was only a little
Was
bit
a little
different.
bit
He had
weird.
already done it.
Oh, that's right.
And so part of the question was sort of like, did you violate
Yeah,
the code when
yeah.
you did that?
It wasn't
Yeah.
a forward.
And what should you do, in the future? And that, again, I think we decided that technically it wasn't a violation of the code, but boy, it doesn't look good, so don't do that again.
So D stuff, now going back to
Yeah,
D,
so
it's got
D-
the anti-pumper. See, I think
Anti-pumper.
that one's maybe
That's an easy one.
That's easy for her. There was a couple of small
Boards
email.
and commissions.
Yeah,
There's
the
a
fire,
issue with that
the
one.
fire and police
Police and
retirement
fire.
board. That's kind of her thing.
She was doing that one, and then, and then she has this general issue she's trying to figure out
Yeah.
whether municipal employees can serve on boards and commissions.
Okay, so the last thing was the project. Kathleen, can we give that to you?
Well, I'm.
Well, that was on Dee's desk too, is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you take that? Sure. Okay, so then, so we got that covered, Dee's gonna come back. What else, there was one more thing. Your letter, get it to me or get it to Lisa, I'll sign it.
Okay.
We can get that off the plate too.
Yeah.
Anything, so that's it, right? Other than that, that'll be
I
kind of
think,
cleaned
I
up?
think we'll be pretty much called.
Okay, perfect, good. Any other questions or comments? I suppose we should finish audience participation.
Next meeting, the 13th of June.
Oh,
Oh, you're good. Yeah, right.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't write that down. Shoot.
When is it, June 13th?
13th of June, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, 13th of June.
Oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah, 13th of June, 11:30 to 1:30.
Okay, let's see. June 13th. Yep, I got it. So does that work for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Member comments? I'm going off the top of my head here. It's been a while. Member comments? Audience participation. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Done.
Thank you.